Sessions are recorded, so if there's something that we go over during any of these sessions that you need to refer back to, they are always found on our Vimeo account. And let me just find that for you for this one here, because there is a showcase that's associated with this that will have all of these videos all together, all on one link. So you can go back and really watch any of them if you really need to. So again, for any of you guys that just hopped on, these sessions are for you guys. Do ask your questions. Give me something to talk about. I do tend to start off and kind of going through some things just so that you guys, to spike some questions. But again, you guys can raise your hand, use the Q&A, whatever is easiest. And your questions that you are asking do benefit others. So in the majority of cases, everyone benefits from a question. So don't be afraid to do so. I like to kind of refer back to things that are brought up to me when I have trainings with others. Some individuals have had AgentLocator for a while, but never really dove deep into it. Maybe they're using alternate systems, whatever it might be. And so one of the things that come up or had come up with somebody was getting notifications. Now, the notifications that you guys get with respect to emails, for example, all those inbound emails, so whether a lead is replying to an email that you've sent them personally, maybe it's part of a drip, maybe it's a listings email, maybe they're actually on your website using one of the contact forms, so asking a question about a property. Those do go to your day-to-day emails, or should be. You get a copy of that to your inbox. Now, one thing to pay attention to is your CRM as well. So when you're in your CRM system, you have your notification center. You do have this on the mobile app as well. It kind of puts all your notifications together, whether it's a task, an email, or an SMS. But once you're in the CRM here, so always kind of gear your eye to the top here. If you notice there's a green dot on the email or the SMS, that means there has been an inbound communication that you've yet to acknowledge within the CRM system. So when we click on this here, we can see that there's 3 new. So there's 3 new emails in here. So maybe you got a copy of it to your cell phone and you looked, or your regular email, I should say, and maybe you looked it on there, but you didn't action it in here. So the system is just pointing that out. So it's just a safe place to go to make sure that nothing slips through the cracks. You'll see that green dot. Once you open up the email itself, you'll be able to see, what the email actually said. You can open the email, of course, and here it will open up the lead, and then you can reply to this individual as well. Right. So again, this is a test CRM, but now you know how that works. You can see here that number 3 now went to 2 notifications, and we can close these. So once we don't need to see those emails anymore because we viewed them, for example, we can close them so they're no longer showing in this overview section. So it's nice and clean, and really only the emails that require your attention, or perhaps you need to go back to, because we're not always in a situation where we can be responsive immediately, or we need to do a little bit of research before we respond to them. So those are in there for you. Just remember that when you guys do respond to emails from your day-to-day email, they are not logged in the system. So as you guys can see here under the email section, you have an outgoing and incoming section. So you're able to easily identify what you're sending and what you're receiving. So if you are replying to, let's say, this ask a question, you got it to your day-to-day email, you responded via your day-to-day email, that response is not going to show in the system. You're now responding outside of AgentLocator. So if you do want all your communication to stay into one hub, that's where you'd want to jump into your CRM system and reply to the email from the system. That way, that full thread of incoming and outgoing remains within the client, within the platform here. The same goes with SMS messages. You have, all the SMS messages here. If it's new, it's going to show new. If we viewed it already, it's just going to kind of stay here, but we didn't reply to it. So it's letting us know that we looked at this email, or this text message rather, but we didn't actually reply to it. But same idea, we do have the ability to close out the ones that we don't want to view anymore. So if we go, it'll allow me to actually close it out and not call me a liar. It should close out for you guys. There we go. It closes out there for you. So again, you can keep those areas nice and tidy. Another thing that you guys have just up in your notification is your task notifications here. The task notifications is going to show you all of your tasks that are coming due or overdue within a 2-hour window. Okay. That's not always ideal for everyone. On your app, it's a little different. It shows kind of everything that's in there for the day. But you do have a calendar on here as well. So when you go into the calendar, you're able to view all of your tasks. And again, you can integrate your Google Calendar with this. So if you guys are part of Google or G Suite, you do have that ability to integrate, which then, of course, you can display the various calendars that you want to display. So it would not only show your agent locator, appointments and what have you in here, it would also show you your Google events as well. Now, the benefit of this is, when you're creating tasks on leads. So if we are creating a task for lead and they've earned a spot in our calendar for some level of follow-up, those tasks will also show up in your Google Calendar as an event. It'll have the day and time for that event as well as a link to the lead. And when you click on your user profile, if you wanted to do an integration with Google, it's just under your user preferences, and it would be in your integrations tab. So when you go into your integrations tab, it's just going to add, asking you to add an account in here. Okay. Keenan's asking, can you see a prospect's current activity, something like if they were currently online or they were online a few minutes ago? Yes, Keenan, you can definitely see that in the CRM system. So here we have the activities column, right? So this is letting us know when they were last actively engaged with listings on your website. So it's not going to, if they were just on our website not doing anything, we're not able to obviously track that. But if they're on there looking at listings, which is usually why they go back on there, that's what this is about. When we go to the activity, we can sort our leads. So if we wanted to filter this and sort it based on that activity, and maybe we want to see the most recently active lead first, it's going to switch this to be reflective of that. So we can see now Jason's on the top being active just 12 days ago, but this does update in real time. So if you switch it, you'll see sometimes there's people that are on there now. There's people on there like 2 minutes ago, 5 minutes ago, 30 minutes ago. It does update in real time for you to do that. You can, with respect to, and that's really with respect to the listings and what have you. Again, if they're opening emails, if we go in here, we can see sometimes you guys will notice that, there are some individuals that, like to open the email. So we can see delivered, and sometimes they're open, they're not necessarily clicked on. That activity, you'll see that. But of course, so this one here, they opened the email, they didn't actually click into your website, right? So for whatever reason, they might be just looking at the listings. Nothing looks like it's, worthwhile checking out. So they're not actually clicking into it. If you notice a pattern of that where they're always just opening the emails and not clicking on anything, we're definitely wanting to get in touch with that individual to ensure that we're sending them the right properties, right? They might be listings that they don't really have any interest in, as to why they're not actually clicking and going any further. The email itself is attractive enough for them to open it. It's just nothing within that email, which is essentially listings, is worthwhile them actually clicking through on it. With respect to your activity as well, so you do have that column here. You also can filter your leads. So if I wanted to pull up all my leads based on that activity, so if I want to do my last activity, property view, I can select. So if I want everyone that was active, last month, for example, I have that ability to do so. I can see that 11 leads were. If I wanted to put it down, in between specific dates, you can. You can also do it within the last number of days. So if I want to pull up all my leads that were last active in, let's say, the last 2 weeks, so last 14 days, and apply it, you can see that 6 of the leads in here were actively engaged in listings within the last 14 days. in here. So that's something that, yes, you are able to do within the system. If you guys are using your filters, some of them will have that. So the third priority has that because they're the third priority. We're kind of focusing on them being active within the last 30 days because these are older leads that perhaps you've already gone through the first two filters, meaning that they've hit non-responsive in majority of cases. So that's why we're always going 1, 2, 3. Non-responsive leads will trigger once you've tried calling them 14 times and still haven't been able to connect with them on the phone, essentially. So then they kind of move to non-responsive. With non-responsive people, we're only following up with them weekly if they've actively been engaged with listings within the last 30 days. So they just drop on our priority list. And again, these filters can all be modified or new filters created. So again, kind of working through that, this is going to cover all your leads initially. The only ones that are going to drop off really are people that you've already called 14 times at least, and all of a sudden they become inactive. But we still haven't made contact with them in any way, shape, or form at that point. So hopefully that answers your question with respect to the listings. And again, for you guys who have just hopped on kind of while I'm going through things, this is an open Q&A. So do feel free to send any questions that you may have with respect to the CRM system. With respect to your leads, with respect to your websites, all of the above. You can use the chat, the Q&A. You can also raise your hand as well if you feel like your question is better asked verbally in here. Sometimes it's easier to do that. So one question that I got from somebody just before this, it wasn't even sent to me, it was sent to a previous colleague. This is only applicable to individuals that have access to sold listings. So the sold listings and what the question was they couldn't select the subtype. So when we're doing an active search, for example, we can go in and we can actually do a subtype right away without having to select an actual type of home first. When we are doing sold listings, you have to put the type of home first. So when we go sold, for example, we have to do type of home and indicate the type of home is, either a townhome, a condo, a house. So once we've then selected the type of home it is, we're then able to go in and do the subtype. So let's select the subtype of what type of house is it. Is it a detached, a semi-detached, link, and so on. So just for any of you guys that do have access to sold listings and you want to narrow it down based on, the actual type of home that it is, it's not just a house, it's a detached or it's a semi or it's a link. You have to first choose the type of home. You can't just select subtype without the type of home already in place in there. I'm just going to discard that. Jeffrey is asking, how can I update areas? So Jeffrey, are you referring to like the areas as to which your lead is getting listings from? If it's referring to the areas of where you're getting leads from, that's our marketing team that would take care of it. If it's with respect to the areas, there's a lot of different ways that you can do that. So here I had a radius, so I'm just going to apply this filter. So search Scarborough and now want Durham. Okay, so perfect. So it really depends on how you have it completely set up in there. So obviously Scarborough is, on the eastern side of Toronto. You may, and I can't remember if they added one for the city for Scarborough. I'm just going to do it because Scarborough, a lot of people do. And you might, Scarborough. It's going to apply and see if it actually shows. So it does show. So they have added it as that. It doesn't show in the drop down simply because Scarborough isn't an actual city. It's a community within it. But so if you have Scarborough in here, you would just add the other cities. So you just start typing it. So if I wanted to add Oshawa, for example, Oshawa is going to automatically pop up. If we wanted to add Ajax, You're going to want to. So one of the things when selecting, if you select and try to click on Ajax, it disappears. So if you click on the text itself, it disappears. So you just want to make sure that when you are doing this to avoid frustrations is to click anywhere in the blue. It will add it in there. So once you have those additional areas, you're just going to click apply in there. Now, if you have somebody that, perhaps there's multiple different areas that they're looking in, you can, of course, add all the cities. The other thing you can do is you can do a massive polygon. On their radius won't work because it only goes so big. So another thing that you can do is to add, this would be if they are wanting to stay within certain areas, perhaps of Oshawa, or within certain kind of boundaries of Scarborough and into the Durham area. This could be useful for you as well. So when we do the polygon, it allows me to, there we go. The polygon, we're just going to go show map. It is going to pull it up for us. I'm just going to go Toronto. And then we can zoom out, right? So we can zoom out and see this entire area. A polygon is going to allow us to draw exactly where we want to go. So if I wanted to kind of go from here, let's say down to the water, and then I want to go all the way into, let's say, Curtis, and then all the way, let's say I want to cover kind of on an angle, I could then go all the way up to like Enfield. So it covers all of this area. It stays within that kind of general area. So then when we go and once we have the polygon set, we can hit apply polygon. If you make an error while you're doing this, you can reset the polygon. The polygon is great because it allows you as well to create pretty defined little areas. This is going to mess up for me probably, but allows you to create those unique shapes that could perhaps be, based on your leads or your clients, what they're looking for, where they're looking for. It allows you to create those boundaries that are quite specific without having to choose all the little communities that are in that area and so on. So when we apply this polygon, for example, it'll be here. If I apply this filter, obviously, there's only going to pull up the properties that are in Toronto because I've selected this as this is obviously the polygon is set into the Toronto area. Close that out there. So a lot of ways that you can get creative with those searches, but it's, just start typing the names of the cities and they will automatically appear there for you. There, so clearing that out. Does anyone have any other questions with respect to the saved searches? I know that we want to be keeping our leads on the AgentLocator platform. I've come across another account where they have several agents, they have sub-users, they're not using the system. And then we were seeing, as, team leader and I were kind of going through, I said, well, look at your system. You have 2,000 plus leads in here. 16 of them are receiving listings based on what the system is telling me right now, which means that they're using this to store and manage their database, but they're not sending them listings through here. So they're not able to, effectively track and manage what their clients or those leads are actually doing with the listings when you're setting them up often enough with your private boards, the Toronto board, unless you're setting them up on, I can't remember what it's called, but there is one side of that. But a lot of boards, you can't see the activity of what people are actually doing with those listings, how many times and so forth. So it's always a good idea to make sure you're updating those searches on here. Your searches do not expire on AgentLocator, which is also great. A lot of boards, it's 90 days and you have to keep turning those searches back on every 90 days. And in some cases, there's a limit to how many people you can actually have on those prospect type matches. So here, you can add everyone to it. They don't expire, which means you can have leads in here for 5 years, 10 years, and they'd still continuously be receiving listing emails from you without you having to go back in and restart it. And one of the common things that our clients have that have been with us for the haul, they've been with us for multiple years, is that they actually get leads that and people that are converted that are just based off them receiving listings for so long from that individual, right? The listings had just kept going and they periodically checked in on them and so forth. Whereas when we're on our regular systems, a lot of the time we don't know what they're doing. So do we reach out to them? You know, is there a reason why I'm reaching out? What do I say to them here? Where it's kind of clear we can see that they're active, and also gives us something to talk about. So Nathan's asking, are the searches for areas outside Toronto able to show the different boards? For example, listings on Treb and ITSO. If we set up a search for Kitchener and there are some listings on Treb and some on the RAR board systems, do they all show up? So that would be, so we are in the process of having the multi-feeds. Okay, so basically, if you're a member of Treb and you're a member of ITSO and you're a member of any other board that surrounds any like the GTA or what have you, any of the boards that we have really. So whether it's across Canada or the boards in the States, you can select the boards. And so in that case, it would show all the listings, regardless of what board. You would pick your default board. So if you wanted Toronto to be the default board, so if that listing was on, let's say, Treb and ITSO, it would default to Treb for that because you have chosen Treb as your default. But if there's additional listings on ITSO that are not on Treb, those would also show. So now if they are, they have to be currently, this release has not, we're just sorting out the bugs. We're kind of going through the beta stages of it. I'm getting feedback, because there is obviously with any big release like that, there is things that need to be fixed and worked out. But right now, currently, you would have your one board, right? So if you have Treb as your board right now, that listing has to be on Treb. Right? It could also be on the Kitchen board, it could be on ITSO, it could be, whatever other board, but it has to be on Treb in order for it to show up on your website as it currently stands. Okay? So that release is going to be a big one for a lot of individuals that are multi-board members, just based on your location or where you choose to practice and so on. So, but yeah. That's your answer to that one there. But again, if you set up search for Kitchener, 100%, if those listings in Kitchener are on the Toronto board, then you're going to have them on your website. So how about market reports? Do you have filters for property types and price ranges in a prospective seller's area? Useful for clients who wish to see sales activity in their area, specifically same type of home they currently have. So you can. So of course you have the property types. You have the price range and so on. And that's something that you guys also have with Street Match. So if you have a branded website, one of our past webinars, we kind of talked about the Street Match and setting people up on active and sold listings in their neighborhood. So if you have access to sold listings, send them the sold data in their neighborhood as well. The active listings just gives them the alert. So when they see or they're driving down the street and they see someone's house go up for sale, you can rest assured that they know that you're going to be sending them that information within a timely manner, essentially. So the filters on here. So if we wanted to, so there's different ways to do this. Obviously, when you're in your search, you would just create their search. So if I was to create a search under this individual, I would just go in here. So you can see how this is basically what you would do in a situation where you're setting somebody up for Street Match, right? We're sending them active listings and sold listings if, of course, you guys have access to that with your board. It's not something that AgentLocator picks and chooses. It's board relevant if your board releases that kind of data. So with the active, again, when we're setting this up, you can set it up for sale. You can do the type of home, the subtype. So now you're sending them only detached homes. Maybe you want to send them all houses. So whether it's a house, a townhouse, a link, a semi, whatever it might be. So they're getting all the listings in that sense. And then you would have a radius, right? So you use the radius. In most cases, you can also use the polygon as previously shown, just depends on where they live. And then you would just drop that pin. So when you have that, when you put the address in here, you have the radius. You can move this radius around as well once you have that. You're just putting the address in to pull up the radius, by the way. And then you can also increase the size of the radius. So depending on where they are and where they live and which, side streets or cross streets and area is relevant or has an impact on the value of their home, you can increase that radius as you need to. So the same idea is when you're setting up the sold or the active is the same way you would set up the sold listings as well. It's kind of going in here and setting that up, having the type, the subtype, and then that radius. If you're setting up sold for somebody, one thing that I do suggest is adding the filter for the sold date. Okay, so when we do the sold date, I would do equal to or less than 90 days. This way, it eliminates all the listings. So there isn't anything that falls within that range, or this might not even be anything on here because of where it is, and this is a TREB board. But you're going to want to have that. So if we have the 90 days on there, then it's really going to only showcase those ones because it'll go way back, and they're going to get all these listings that sold perhaps in January of this year, which obviously are not reflective of what their home would be valued at right at this moment. So again, you would just add searches, name the search. So this one here, I actually set up through the website. I signed up on the website for Street Match or Homeworth. Both of those do the exact same thing. But if you are adding a search in here, just remember the filter name here is actually in the subject line of the email. So one thing I always do is put the address, active listings around, and then the street address, and then put in that criteria, building it all out. You can change the time of day it goes. Again, this is just checking at this time. It doesn't mean that they're going to get an email every single day or the same listing every single day because there's only one that's falling. It'll only send them an email if there's something new that's come on the market, but it's going to check daily. You can, depending on, how you want it in any scenario, you can do it where maybe you just select once a week or twice a week that it's checking, or once every 2 weeks. It really depends on how you're nurturing that individual in your database. But setting them up for that is one way that you can do that. Another tool that you have as well is the listing exposure tool. Okay, so the listing exposure tool, there's a little video on it, but it's kind of unique in the sense of, let me close you out. There we go. Is kind of unique. So this is directly connected to your board with AgentLocator though, and all the agents that are in here and how many leads are in the database of AgentLocator, okay? So when you're using it for a marketing perspective, if we search, for example, the city of Toronto, I can go and just search city of Toronto and just apply that as the filter. Within AgentLocator, it's going to let us know that this is how many people, how many leads in AgentLocator's backend are currently set up to receive listings in Toronto right now. Okay, so this is the potential system reach of you gaining that listing. So this is a way that for a marketing tactic is I have, over, this is a pretty big number. It would sound pretty unrealistic, but I have over 300,000 prospects within a system I use that your listing would actually reach to help get it sold. Now, of course, we can narrow this down. So if it was a detached home, we can add that filter on there. We can do the price range. So the price range of how, what people are searching in. If we do bedrooms, bathrooms, things like that. Not everyone has bedrooms and bathrooms as part of their searches. Just keep that in mind, because that would, in one case, require the agent to have actually updated that information and spoken to that person, or for that lead to have updated their search to include that. So if you're going to do a system reach, let's say the system reach is, let's say 1.5 million in here. So anywhere, let's say you're trying to price a house between, I don't know, 1.3 and 1.5. So now if we're looking at people who are searching for listings in Toronto with the type of home was being detached and the price range falls somewhere in there when we apply the filters, your system reaches about 17,000, almost 18,000 potential buyers that that listing would be exposed to. So this is a tactic that you guys can use with your listing when before you're going to go on any kind of CMA with any individual. Is kind of pull this data up as to, you know, the location of it, the type of home, and the price range, and just kind of say, hey, it's going to potentially reach this many people. Now you can also see how many active listings are on the market that fall within that, the average day on the market, and the average price being 1.4. So it's a really, really unique tool in here. And again, it's reflective of your board. So this again is the Toronto board and all the leads in AgentLocator. So in the back end of AgentLocator that are currently receiving listings from all of you folks, there's 17,000, almost 18,000 of them that match this specific criteria. Again, the exposure, this is how many people we get through just with AgentLocator. And so it's kind of unique in how you guys can use it. Of course, if you guys are on different board, it's pulling that data based on that board, how many agents are with us on that board, how many leads are in the back end receiving listings through that board, and it pulls up that data, you know, reflective of that. So that's a neat way for you guys to really gain confidence in a, you know, potential seller out there is how far that listing could reach just with your website alone, right? So let's just kind of go there. Go. Tatiana saying, I've just finished to work with my buyer lead. What should I do on my unbranded website? So you just finished with your buyer lead. So again, you closed your buyer. Your best bet, again, with those buyer leads is we want to keep ourselves top of mind, right? We want to be relationship, not transactional. That person is going to move again at some point in life, or you're going to gain referrals from them, right? 100% if you have access to sold listings. Set them up to receive sold listings. I've set you up to receive sold listings and let them know in your neighborhood. You're going to get an email anytime one of those properties do sell. So check it out. It's going to keep you up to date with the market and how your home price is fluctuating. You know, whether, you know, it's obviously it may go up, it might come down a little bit, but obviously they're going to be able to see what's happening and how their, you know, one of their largest investments is appreciating in the market. So that's something definitely that I would do. In here, you also want to make sure that we're marking them as sold. So if they're in here, you can mark them as sold. If you're adding them to here, you can have a lead type as past client. You can also move it as past client. If it's somebody that you're in here, it's going to prompt you when you do that to add the sold data for that person. So it's going to go in here. You can put that in there. It just kind of shows up in their contact card, so to speak. So if I open up this lead here, it would show up in their sold details. You'll be able to see all that data in here. Of course, you can add the sale. So again, what I would do is if you have access to sold data, add them up on that. It's a great way to keep yourself top of mind with that individual after the fact. I would 100%, if you're tasking in here and you're diligent with your tasks, is to task yourself to follow up with them. You know, in a year's time, check in, whatever it might be doing to keep yourself again top of mind with those past clients. You also have the ability down here, if you scroll down, under your more details is a purchase anniversary. So put in the date of that purchase, so the closing of that home. And once you put into the date, so let's say their closing is on the 23rd of November, okay? So we have that in here. We then have the ability when we click on this little icon to then have something go out to them automatically on that day every single year without you remembering to do it. Okay, so this is kind of like the fallback of everything you should be doing manually, but also something in addition to. So you can choose if you want it to be an SMS or an email. You can select the time of day it goes out, and then you can put in, you know, you can create a generic template that you may want to use for this purpose, or you can build out that, you know, that whole email, like, hey, Crystal, I just want to touch base. It's been a year. It's happy home anniversary. You know, whatever it is that you want to send that person, you sign, seal, deliver it. You don't have to think about it. It's going to go to that lead or that client every single year on that date. And again, another tool and tactic to keep yourself top of mind. So those are really the strategies in here, is to put the purchase. Again, you guys can do this for their birthdays as well. So it automatically sends them a thing on their birthday. Set them up to receive sold listings in their area. If they want the active as well, you can always ask them. So like, I set you up to receive this. I don't want to bombard you with emails. But if you want to also get notified when they're listed, just let me know and I can easily set that up as well. But for, somebody that you just sold, they're, more importantly, if you can get them this sold, then get them this sold. If you don't have access to sold, 100% put them on the active, and let them know and say that way you guys, you're going to stay in tune with what the listing behavioral activity is in the neighborhood. If you have any questions about the homes that do get listed, whether it's, what it, ends up selling for, whatever it might be, just reach out, again, being that resource for them. And again, if you're going to task them, then you can task them. You guys also have the ability in here as well, and this comes back to if you're diligent with your filters, there is check-in filters, okay? So in your system, again, this is all duplicated because it's a training CRM and things got duplicated. There's obviously a 6-month check-in. You can create an annual check-in. So if, again, you are diligent on clearing out your filters or, checking your check-in filters on a daily basis, is to create one for a 12-month check-in. And it's as easy as you just clicking on one that even already exists, and you would have to create the tag. So the first thing you would actually do is create the tag for, an annual check-in, for example. So creating that tag. And then lead was not contacted by phone, let's say, and 365 is you changing that and just save it as new. To create a tag, you can do it on any of your leads. You can just go into the settings and create a tag. So if we want to kind of walk through that together, we can definitely do it. So we're going to hit the plus sign. It's a little bit slower because not everyone has gotten used to tags yet. So we hit the plus sign. And then we do not have an annual tag, but it kind of falls into our check-ins. So you can see where the check-ins are. So we're going to kind of want it to match that suit and fall into that same category. So we're going to use an asterisk, so it does. And then, for example, annual check-in. And we make it the same color by selecting the pink. So again, it's all matchy-matchy. When you add that check-in tag, it's going to automatically select it if you're on a lead. So if you're creating it on a lead that you don't want it on, just make sure you unselect it. And then if we go done, then again, you can open up any one of your check-in filters. So let's pretend it's this one. And now I'm going to, instead of have this one, I want the annual check-in. And then the phone, and then that's 365, because this is going to be on the date of your last phone call, okay? So just make sure if you haven't, just make sure you log a call on them today or backdate it to that date, and I'll show you how to do that in just a moment. So 365, and then we would save it as new. If you want it to show up in yours, it should, I'm just trying to think here. Yes, I think you might have to. We'll see if it works for company, just so that it shows. It doesn't matter because you can pin it, but annual check-in. You can save it. You can pin it to your dashboard if you want to. And that's going to show that you can move things over, right? So all your check-ins are in place. So we go to this, we can see there's one person that has this tag on there, and they're in here because there hasn't been a call on them. Okay, so one of the things that we want to do is to trigger that because the system is dynamic. So what we can do is, let's pretend there's a call that happened on this person 366 days ago, for example. So if we go into our notes and calls, we would go to 2022, and what's today's date? So that call would have happened, on the 5th? No, yes, the 5th. I was going to do the 5th. 64, save. Oh, so let's pretend we talked to the lead, save that. So in the notes and calls, it's going to show that this call happened a while back. We can see. Please tell me it saved the right date. Nope, it did not. So it was 2022, 6. Save. So it's going to go all the way down the bottom, right down here, has that date, that timestamp on it instead. Now this person, I might have did that completely wrong. It might have had to be the day after, but now we can see they're not in here. Okay, so they're not in here, but tomorrow that person would be in here because it would fall on the 365th day. Okay, so just making sure that you just go and backdate that call. But that's one way as well. If you are using your filters and you are diligent on doing that and clearing those out daily, that's another thing to do in addition to tasking them. Again, if you don't want that fall proof, that thing, the tasks in your system, you guys should be getting emails for them. You get an email in the morning letting you know of your tasks that are due or overdue, or in progress, that sort of thing. So if you don't get an email, if you're creating tasks and you're not getting those emails, it's under your user preferences and in your lead alert. Okay, so when you go to your lead alert, you want to make sure this is, you want to receive daily reminders. It's yes, and it's the ones that are not started, in progress, or waiting on someone else that we selected. If you want to select the completed and closed ones on that day, by all means, you can. There's nothing, it's not going to hurt you to have those, but this will send you in the morning. You'll get an email letting you know of your tasks that are due for that day. So a lot of people do enjoy that if they are creating tasks, because it's just another way of reminding them of those tasks they've created for themselves. So can you say some reports show a whole range from hundreds into millions? What if they want to see homes that are sold or listed within a reasonable price? Well, if they're their home, you can specify a price range. So Keenan, with respect to, the sold. So if you want it so that only the homes that sell under less than, whatever amount of money, or in between the certain amount of monies, you can definitely do that. And again, that would be in the price ranges. So again, we're kind of going back into, so for you guys that are watching, this is relevant to the sold data again. Or if you're doing listing, if it's active listings, either way, is the price range, right? So you can, essentially, I'm going to take this off. I don't even know if there is. So this is detached sold house, let's say. There's obviously a lot on here because I now have removed the whole area as being part of the criteria, just because I don't think there is any listings in that area on the Toronto board. So when we're doing in here, would be the price range, right? So the price range, so the thing is like when we do it, it's like, for example, so when I do the sold date, the reason why I do equal to or less than, and if I do 90 days, so if we go, and this is the Toronto board, if in the last 90 days I go of detached homes, there were still over 1,500 listings that sold, right? So this is where we're kind of more closely knit into their neighborhood, right? So we're in their neighborhood, the homes around them. They're going to want to see what they're selling for. If they're looking in an area as to where they want to purchase, but most are going to want to see the low end and the high end. But if that's kind of where we want to have that radius in place. So if we draw the radius again, and I'll just draw a completely different area other than what was on there. So we'll just go into Toronto here, and I'm going to drop it. And let's just say, I'm going to drop it over here perhaps, and then just increase this radius. Okay. Now, if I apply this range, and apply that, there's now 16 properties that sold. Okay, so you can see when they're selling in here. But that is, so that's only the ones that sold in the last 90 days, right? So regardless of the price, they're only going to get an email if something sells within the last 90 days. So if I took off this 90 days, we're going to have everything. 165 properties that have sold within that area, and the date will go back. So if we go to the 14th page, we're going to see like this is last year. So 721 days ago, or 2 years ago, 2 years ago, at least, with respect to when that sold. So again, this would be irrelevant to them now, what it sold last year. That's why we put in the sold within the last 90 days. You can definitely put in the price range, of course, There's nothing that's wrong with doing that, but then they're not going to see all the properties that are selling in their neighborhood again. And some of those higher values or lower values are still going to impact the value of their home. And it's figuring out what's different about that home as to why it yielded a higher selling price or a lower selling price. But you can definitely still find, what's the average price of these homes? Let's see. They're about 1, 2, yeah, so some of them are high, so we can definitely do it. So let's just say, based on the area, maybe there's some houses that are just totally not reflective of your client's house. They're brand new builds, modern compared to the other ones. You can definitely do it as far as price goes. So the list price, the range, for example, I don't think they have a sold price. I should see that. Yes, they do. So sold price. So if you have the sold price, you can do the range. So anywhere from, let's say, I want to see everything that's sold from 1.1 to, let's say, 1.6. Just because I know there was one that was on here that was higher than that. So then there's just 6 listings that show. But again, they're not going to receive everything that falls into that area. So it really depends on how unique of a property, I guess, that your client has or the neighboring home. A lot of generalized neighborhoods, most of them are very similar, compatible, but that's also where sometimes we've got to choose between a radius or a specific polygon around a certain area. If it's a huge radius, well then that's it. Definitely you may want to have that price range in there. Some people like to see everything. Some people set themselves up on Street Match and basically radius the entire city. Obviously, that's not always reflective of what their home is valued at, as you guys know. So it really just depends. If you do notice that, I would shrink that radius, again, offering some insight onto that. Often those people are actually looking for listings to purchase, not necessarily looking at what's selling in those neighborhoods in there. Yes, so it is available for sold, excuse me, for sold and for listed properties as well. So you can definitely have that in there if you're targeting kind of like, this is kind of, what's selling in between these certain areas. So hopefully that helps you guys out with respect to that. So we have, let's see if there's any more questions here to do that. So kind of going back into your listings, you guys do have ability to find people. So some of you may have an extensive database in here that maybe you've imported, or perhaps you had AgentLocator for a long time, or you had it in the past, and now you're coming back. We want to find who's receiving listings from us and who isn't receiving. So when we add a filter item, there is a receive listings. So if we do the receive listings email, or doesn't receive. So if I want to pull up everyone that does not receive the listings email from this system, I can hit apply and see that there's 100 leads in here that currently aren't receiving listings from here. We can also identify that through this. There's no number next to this stack of coins here. I call it a stack of coins. It's a safe search icon. But that's basically what that indicates. These people do not have listings being sent to them currently. So this is somewhere where you can go into the lead. I'll just pick up this one and then go down. When you see here, there's a save listing search section. You get to choose the website. So if you have more than one website with us, you can choose whether it's your lead gen site or your branded site that they're getting the listings from. Entirely up to you. And then you can send them the activation email if you wish. This is just that generic style email that every lead gets when they register on your website with a link to validate their email address. It also, gives them that first look at the email itself or the website itself. But whether or not you choose that, you just add them as a new lead gen user. Go yes, and then you'll have that ability to build out that search for them. In many cases, these leads, and again, if you guys were previously on our legacy or currently still have a legacy site, you can still see their activity on here. They're looking at the listings and they're looking at those listings on your branded site. That does not automatically set people up to receive listings from you. So you can still see that activity if you wanted to utilize that to help build out their search, because it'll give you the location, the price ranges that that they were looking at, so on. So you can kind of build them a generic search that way. If you have somebody like this where maybe there is nothing that indicates what this person is or what they would be looking for, then 100% we're going to want to call them, because we want to kind of get an idea as to what they're potentially looking for, so that we can send them the proper properties, listings, so on. Perfect. So that's, yeah, again, one of the ways that you guys can do that and keeping them in here. This would ensure, again, their activity in the system, they're getting those. And again, it's great for past clients as well, or people that you're meeting outside of your website, using this as a database to kind of manage them. And don't scrap them. Let them sit here. If people aren't active, don't let it bother you. It's okay that they're not active. You'd rather them being in your system and all of a sudden get this, I got this email from so-and-so, and actually open it up after, it could be 90 days. It could be, 180 days before they open an email. But at least they opened the email and they're on your website looking at the listings rather than performing another Google search. Now, not to say that they didn't perform one prior to, but they also have those emails continuously coming from you. Another great way that you can do, or thing that you can do with your database with respect to listings is, this week's top picks. I think I talked about this in one of the previous webinars, but we can also, filter things out. Okay. So we're sending, let's say this is this week's top condos in Toronto, right? So first of all, we want to find out all the leads in our system that are looking at listings in Toronto, specifically a condo. Okay. So when we add the filter item, you have the ability to do that. We have the buying city, so we can type in Toronto, just hit enter, and then you have the filter, so the buying type. In this case, it's the condo. Try refreshing your screen. This is fun. I broke it, guys. So now it's actually loaded. There's 25 people of all those 320, however many leads are in here. 25 of those leads are currently receiving or set up. Their search is set up to receive condos in Toronto. Now, if we're sending them an email, one of the things that we also may want to do is make sure they haven't unsubscribed or have a bad email. It's not going to hurt you if you try to send it to them, but it's always kind of like, it's not a bad habit to have, is the email validity. We want to make sure we're sending people either that have a valid, or we just don't know yet. Maybe we haven't sent them anything from the system. They're a new contact. So once you have that set and apply, out of those 25 people, there's now just 6 that I can essentially send an email to. So we're going to select all 6 of them. So we can go here. If you have more than 6, you're going to go select all. And then you have the ability up here to send hand-picked listings. So when you're sending these hand-picked listings, and again, if you have active and new sold, you can do that as well. You have, you're going to basically go city, and then it's Toronto in this case, giving you guys an example. So city is Toronto. And then the type, so the subtype is going to be a condo, apartment, or it could be type of home. Again, different boards reflect different things. But generally the same idea. It's either type of home or subtype. And then listed. So if you're doing this weekly, you're going to want to do it. So listed. List date. I think it's list date. Nope, no, it's days on market, guys. Days on market. So if we want days on market, it's equal to or less than, let's say, 7 days on the market, or it could be 0 days on the market. If they're already sold, obviously we don't want them. So if we apply those, you can see that in Toronto, there's currently 700, almost 700 listings that have been listed and have been on the market for less than 7 days or less. Some of them are clearly just listed 0 hours ago, kind of thing. So we can, of course, refine this further, or you can go through 699. Maybe you select like 2-bedroom condos or what have you, maybe specific areas. Again, you can filter it out and find the unique ones. These ones aren't going to last long. Maybe you kind of put price ranges in there, to modify a little bit deeper or to narrow things out. But ultimately what you would do is you would select the ones that you want to, or maybe about, maybe you've already done some research. You can also do this. So if you've done some research prior to and come across them, you can also just use the MLS. There's a filter just to add the MLS number, so you could do that as well. So once you select the ones that you want to send, you can customize the email that you're going to send to them. All right. So again, you can change the subject, this week's top, 10 or top 25 condos listed in Toronto, whatever it might be, to catch their attention. And then we're writing something again to grab their attention. These ones here, there's all something unique with them that I feel like won't let them last long. If you guys have any questions or wish to book a showing, by all means, I'm here to help. You can write your little custom menu there. You can format it, make it stand out. And then again, they're going to receive that listing email from you with all those specifically hand-picked listings that you chose to send to them. So it's just another way to be creative, to stand out, sending them listings, getting people back onto your website, other than just the standard, way of them just browsing for properties, right? You may get some people that perhaps weren't active in the last X amount of days with those listing emails, and this one stood out and brought them to be active. Or perhaps the frequency of the listing emails for them has decreased because they've just kind of been stagnant for too long. You could get some notifications that so-and-so is now active after 30 days of inactivity, allowing you to go in and retweak their account. So it's a great and creative way for you guys to engage with your database on a unique level. And again, you can get as creative as you want to with these, the buying home types. And again, you can do price range. So if you wanted to break this down even further, you can. If you're adding the buying price range, just so that you guys know, for example, if you're doing the range, because that might help you when you're selecting those properties, kind of breaking these people up into different categories, is essentially the minimum buying price. So let's say I'm just going to go 450. And the maximum, let's say, is 700. Now let's see if this actually weeds this out. So there's 5 of them. So what it's doing is, as long as their price range falls somewhere in here. So even if the minimum is 450, so we can see this person's minimum is 500, but their maximum is 700, which means they still fall within the category of being under 700,000. So if you're ever looking at that and that kind of concern, okay, well, this person's getting it, it's because their maximum falls. Something falls still within the criteria of the range that you selected. You can also do it, of course, equal to or greater than, top listed homes, based in Toronto that are listed. This week's top picks over 1 million. This week's top picks under 500, that sort of thing, to get creative with the different audiences based on the price ranges that they're actually searching within. So that, I suppose, it concludes our session today. So thank you, everyone that did hop on and ask your questions. We're always here to help you and, get you guys using your system to its maximum potential. We do this every Monday. So any questions that you do have, by all means, if you think of them throughout the week, by all means, you can shoot me an email to say, hey, for next week's webinar. So if it's a topic that perhaps we haven't touched on with you being on here, or maybe you're not going to be able to make it, you just want the answers. Obviously, if you're sending it to me earlier and you want it discussed on the webinar and you kind of need an answer for it, I'm going to give you an answer to it right away. I'm not going to make you wait to the Monday, but it also gives me ideas as to what to talk about so that you guys can benefit all around by learning some of those things that, again, the questions that you guys have, often others are benefiting from it as well. But thanks, everyone, for hopping on, and hope to see you back again next week on Monday.